of managing and doing investigations along the border, speaking with cooperating defendants, informants, and reviewing much of our electronic surveillance. We just don't have the evidence that the major cartels are getting it into the country that way.
I want to make sure I understand the metaphor you used. When you said shotgunning the border, of course, when you fire a shotgun, many pellets come out at the same time. That's what you mean by sending many trucks toward the border that might have many shipments of drugs, and some of them presumably will get through.
Yeah, I mean, it's vehicles of any type, buses, cars, trucks, you name it. If they can conceal it, they're going to use it. And that's where the business sense really takes over for the cartels. That's part of their business model. I think another important point people don't understand is once you clear the ports of entry, you are very, very close to accessing interstate and large highway systems. So it allows them to move the dope on down the road.
So you would like to take those few $1 billion and do what instead? Would you improve scanning technology at legal ports of entry so that more than a small percentage, a relatively small percentage, gets scanned?
Yeah, absolutely. I would increase manpower and technology all along the border. And I think that's really...
Ooh, jobs, right? Enforcement jobs. So our men and women who know how to handle grenades and automatic weapons and wear flak vests, they can have something to do and get paid. Just sit over there in the corner with this automatic weapon. Look menacing, motherfucker. You can just bleep that part out.
Was not drug interdiction. Not that it was pointless, but he was actually worried about drug addiction. He was worried about cutting off the demand for drugs rather than worrying so much about the supply.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know what a real national emergency is? It's 120 some odd people each day in this United States dying of drug overdose, and much of that is opioid related. It's estimated now that nearly 70.
And you notice he doesn't say whether they're legal opiates or illegal opiates.
That's a national emergency.
Is a wall going to save those lives?
Well, certainly a wall would slow down. I think you'll...
Here's the thing. You want to know who's actually dying from opiates? And I know some people will get offended by this because they know people that have overdosed from this stuff. But it's yuppies. People who've gone into upper middle class who can afford to buy this stuff in mass. Your average person that's living on the bottom tier of the federal income tax bracket, the two bottom income tax brackets, they can barely afford to even have a prescription for one prescription a month. That's truth for you. How's that for slapping it in your face?
We're about 500-600 agents down or authorized strength. I think money could be well spent, and then look at the treatment and education issue to back up really the national issue.
No, authorized strength, that is the number of agents that you can legally hire if Congress then gives you the money, but Congress has come up short on the money.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roddy, thanks so much.
You know how you fix it? You legalize all of it. That's how you do it. And that way, recreational drug use becomes a thing, and then people they know their weight, they know where the stuff is coming from. They know that if they weigh 300 pounds, that they should only be able to take 150 milligrams. Otherwise, they're risking death if they go beyond that. But then you're going to say, but it didn't stop all those people from overdosing. Yeah, well, people who get prescribed that, that's the point, is they make the opiates, they take the fun out of it because of all those mandates. There's all these legal mandates in the laws that say that if anything has abuse potential, and then now you're a chemist and you're making something, what do? You create something and it makes you feel good. Uh-oh, now the abuse potential has ratcheted up. And what are they going to do? Oh, they're going to say that you can't have that drug because now it produces addictive effects in rats. But of course, these rats are the only ones that they're just in a cage and they're surrounded by a drug, and they have nothing to do except eat it. So that test is kind of flawed, if you really understand what's going on. I've already said this before, right? Yeah, it's the whole rat in the amusement park thing. If you give a rat a mate in an amusement park and then you put the most addictive drugs that a rat could ever have in the corner, the rat will avoid the drugs. They may try it a couple of times, but then they won't go back to it, even despite being how addictive it is. But they never tell you that. They don't tell you that in modern media at all. So, recreational drugs legalized, then guess what? More research and development and more safer alternatives come out. And that means that drug makers now aren't shackled to the ground with these unrealistic constraints of making drugs that don't actually make you feel good, but cure one symptom and cause 8 other problems. Which is, yeah, they call that novelty. That's a novelty solution. Well, it lowers blood pressure, but over 10 years it destroys the kidneys. But we find that no one will be able to prove that for the next 30 years. So our drug will it'll definitely crest, and all our stockholders will be happy. Welcome to America! Here's your cigar, son! You understand? That's pretty much how it works. So how do you fix the drug problem? Well, first of all, supply and demand. They're always going after the supply. And what do they want? Funding, 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 funding. More jobs, 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 jobs for the funding, 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 for the enforcement. I want to kick down some doors. I want to throw some grenades. I want to watch people's heads blow apart. There's always those nutsos. You know what I mean? Everything's always about a shaver and the fucking gun oil in the morning. I smell gun oil in the morning, and I shave. I shave my head, I shave my face, I shave even the lower parts below my belt. That's because I love gun oil. Yep, that's who they are. They're fucking nutty. And these are the same people that are putting on outfits and lobbying for more money for guns and bombs. And the right, there's little shiny badges to kick in doors. Just want to kick in some doors. Shoot some pooches. Look, there's a poodle. I feel threatened. Oh, the 2-year-old's crying. I know, it's bad. Drug use, recreational drug use, is a part of every human being and always will be till the end of time. Always will be. It's hypocritical to say that you can't recreational use nicotine, or you can use recreational nicotine, but you can't use this drug. You can't use a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. Oh no, it comes from a leaf. Well, isn't tobacco a leaf? Yeah. Well, they're both 2 green leaves, and when they're dried, they turn brown. So they're pretty much the same, they're just a little different shape and size. I gotta back away from this. It's too much science, too much logic. The argument's been lost a long time ago. I mean, we all realize what it is. It's just funding. They're just perpetuating funding. Funding, funding, funding. You will save more lives in this country by legalizing recreational drug use. Even hard drug use. As long as the purity and the milligrams are, just think about it, because if you have like these addicts and they're using, you're going to know where they're getting their stuff from. You're going to know where it's coming from. But then there's the price thing. So what if they inflate the prices so high that no one can afford it? Well, then they're just going to go to the street and get underground lab created chemicals anyway, and they're not going to know what's in it. Correct? Well, but that's what illegalization has done anyway. It doesn't drive the price up, it actually drives the price down. The most successful drug campaign in history was against tobacco, and it was never even made illegal. And it continues to drop. The usage continues to drop. And the vast majority of this country doesn't smoke anymore. And it continues to go down. And I believe that after a couple of generations, I don't think anybody's going to be smoking tobacco. I mean, that's my gut feeling, is that it's going to be gone. It's going to be such a low amount that no one's going to pay attention to it anymore. But on the other hand, no amount of plastic explosives, Humvee tanks with pneumatic door smashers, billions of dollars in vests and stormtrooper boots and guns and shotguns and helmets and flak vests and automatic weapons and a shitload of gun oil. I mean, like 18,000 tankers of gun oil so they could rub it all over their bodies before they come and kick down your door. All of that stuff, you know how much difference it's made in 20 years? None. Zero. And one marketing campaign without making anything illegal actually did change a drug usage habit in the country for a positive benefit. Now, if that doesn't tickle your fancy, then I don't know what would. I guess that's a weird thing to say, but and here's the thing about, they call pot weed, right? Do you want to know, on the $10 Federal Reserve note, the $10 Federal Reserve note, take a look at that note. Now, they took it out of circulation for a reason, because on the back of that note was the pride and the joy of America. They were farming hemp, which is marijuana. Yes. Or as they call it, weed. They were farming weed. The whole damn country was ingrained in farming weed. Hemp. That's what it was. They were farming it. They were using it for a lot of things. They were using it so much so, and it was such an ingrained part of the American economy, that they stuck it on one of our dollar bills. And one of the most important dollar bills at the time, it was the $10 bill. A good round number. It wasn't 1, but it was 10. Right on the back of it, there's hemp farming. Now, when it became illegal, of course, they're like, oh, we can't show our history. We can't show what the fact that the vast majority of our American flags were actually woven with marijuana fibers. No, we can't do that. No, not at all. We can't have people walking around like zombies. Now, people get angry when I say stuff like that, because they're like, oh, you want little toddlers walking around with deformities and everyone's a zombie. And these are the same people who, they talk about tougher sentences on crime, and then they go to a bar, they do cocaine and all kinds of other drugs, and then go out with a prostitute, which is completely illegal. And then they go home to their wives, and then the next day they go out to a political rally, and they say the same thing about being tough on crime. It's so fucking hypocritical. It's gotten to the point where the hypocrite meter has exploded. It just went beep because it was off the scale. The hypocrite meter broke a long time ago. So yeah, take a look at the Federal Reserve note, $10 bill, the one from the past. I forget which year it is, and you will see that they're actually farming hemp on it. And it used to be a part of this country, so much so that the government decided that they wanted to print it on our currency. And how do we get from that to this insanity of banging down doors and shooting people for growing something that was a national pride? Now, I want you to think about that for a second. It was a national pride. And then we went from national pride to, if you have it, we're going to throw you in jail, strip you fucking naked, shave your head off, put a barcode serial number on you, and make it so that you can't only get a job at a fucking rest station for the rest of your life. How did we go from one to the other? That's a good question, because I think the people realize, when you look at it, you've been betrayed by law. You've been betrayed by the people who make the law. You've been betrayed by the people who make those rules. It's betrayal at the highest court. And that shit needs to stop. It just needs to be stopped. period, because it's not part of this country, and it's a shaming our own history. And common sense, just pure common sense. What works versus what doesn't work? What, even in our own country, legalization works. Marketing campaigns that explain the bad health effects of overdosing and taking certain drugs works. That works. It reduces the population. It reduces the forbidden fruit effect. It reduces it to the point that it becomes a social stigma. And that is what it is. It's a social problem. It's not a legal problem. It never was. That's why that whole entire industry should be fuck all banned. All those people should be just dismissed. Goodbye. You're not needed anymore. The only thing that we need the DEA for is to do their fucking job and figure out when chemicals actually cause cancer and hold corporations responsible for that, and to prevent them from dumping the shit in the rivers or putting it in our foods, for God's sakes. That's what they're there for. That's what they're supposed to be there for. Not figuring out whether you actually feel good at 9 o'clock at night and busting down your door and forcing blood samples out of you. That's not what it was supposed to be about. But that's what they turned it into, because it became a big business model. You see? Big business. Money, money, money.